All right, Pam, thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to the Unified webinar, and today certainly we have quite a bit planned in the agenda, so let's start with that. To begin with, we're going to spend a little bit of time here this afternoon looking at what is the Victor Unified Client, and then I want to spend some valuable time to discuss the difference between unified and integrated. These are words that tend to be used very interchangeably, but at the end of the day, they're very different in terms of their approach and what they can provide. So we'll spend a little bit of time to discuss that, and then I'm going to transition the presentation over to Jeff Hobbs, who's going to walk you through some of the feature sets of the Victor Unified Client and talk about the benefits of having those over just your standard Secure 9000. And then we'll come back and look at the back end of the whole solution with the unified server and what that means and what it looks like, and then wrap up at the end here with a few key takeaways and what we feel are hopefully the messages that you're going to get from today's webinar. All right, so let's start off talking about the Victor Unified Client. One of the key things, and Pam sort of introed here at the very beginning, is that this is based on Secure 9000 version 230 combined with Victor version 4.5, right? So those two things being combined together and then being able to manage access control and video through one client front end. That's really at the most fundamental what we're talking about. But what I really want as a key message from this particular slide is to make sure that people understand this is not a replacement for the existing Secure 9000 clients. It's a new client choice, an experience that you can select from. So you still have your admin client, your monitoring, the badging stations, the web client, the mobile client that is now supported with version 230 called Secure Go on iOS and Android. And now, as well, we have the Victor Unified Client, which allows us to bring a very strong synergy between access and video together in that one client interface. And in a few minutes here, Jeff will take us through and demonstrate some of what that looks like, and again, why there are some advantages to it. So again, the most important thing here is that this is a new tool in the tool bag of client experiences that you can have with Tyco security products, both American Dynamics and Software House. It doesn't require you to have to lose any particular functionality because these can all run in tandem. Okay, so then let's transition and talk a little bit more about, well, what does unified mean versus integrated? And again, at the most high level and basic explanation, unified is when we take all of the information and we combine it in one database, one data source. And what you can leverage when all of a sudden things happen and you can use things like analytics to make decisions and cause reactions and triggers and events to happen and not have to have a middleware or an extended piece to talk to. And that's really the key difference. When we look at integrations, as you can see with the tab on the right, you have your standard server and it has its database, but then you're talking to something else that has either a file, some sort of database, some sort of information that you're sharing and sort of writing a middleware to communicate between. And today, that's a very powerful part of extending the security platform. It brings in things like visitor management, video, license plate recognition, fire, intrusion, elevators, right? So there's quite a bit that gets covered with that, and it's powerful and necessary. But really one of the key things here is that there is a lot bigger advantage to being able to have that data source in one place in terms of how fast you can respond and the things that you can automate. And certainly between Software House and American Dynamics with that unified approach, that's exactly what we get. So then let's take a look a little bit more at the holistic view of what this means. As the image that's coming up and you're seeing come up on your screen shows just a regular lobby, and tied into it is, yes, certainly the video, and yes, the access control, but you can also see in there then that there's intrusion panels, there's smoke detectors, fire alarms. Maybe in this building there's also elevators, there's intercom, there's all these other aspects that could tie into the security system. And really what becomes the benefit here, and again the key takeaway and message for this slide is that you really have the best of both worlds, because you have a unified between access and video, and you have the power of the connected program and integrations to bring in all this other very relevant information and be able to again respond and provide better information when things are going wrong, right? So this really is about a hybrid approach to combining unified between access and video, and hybrid to bring in almost anything else that you can conceive of. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the back end and the server. So at this point then, I'm going to transition over to Jeff Hobbs, who's going to talk a little bit more about the specific features in the client and how those work. Jeff?
Great. Thank you, Jason. Good day, everybody. As you can see here, this look is very familiar to something for a lot of you guys that are using a current version of C-Tier 9000. Over here, we're going to look at our swipe and show features. So as everybody comes in and badges, this is going to be very dynamic and switching to anybody coming in through the window. Up here, we have our event priority window, and as events start to come in, you'll start to see that get populated with video. And then the event viewer will stack them, sorted by priority, as ever ways to come in. So depending if it's a door forced to open, a bad credential read, or if it's something coming through the connected, we can associate them to video and then bring them up onto the client. So there's an event happening. In this case, we're able to see the live picture coming up, and we can also see then with a simple click, we can right-click and actually review that video. This could be, again, brought in through an intrusion detection, something through an analytic trip on the video side, or something from the C-Tier system, or something connected to it through the connected program. Maybe it's an intercom call. So again, right-clicking and hitting review, we're going to bring up that video from the camera, plus all the associated cameras, up to 5 cameras associated to that singular entity. So then we get full playback control. We're going to be able to play back, fast forward, rewind, do whatever we need to do for the investigation, start creating the clip, and making a better picture of what happened to cause that event. Simply clicking on the map gives us a geographic location for somebody who's monitoring the facility. If someone's remote, this gives them a great picture into the facility and allows them to navigate through and see any sort of relevant data or any sort of relevant thing that would be map related. Again, clicking through back to the camera side, we're able to fast forward, rewind, zoom in, zoom out, really check into that investigation and do a complete, fully functional investigation from a video perspective, again, driven from some sort of event coming from the C-Tier system. So simply starting on the clip, we can start the set time, we can set the end time, and then we can click on the export, making it a simple process to click, get to the information, and then export the video that's associated to the event. Here you can see we have the start time, the end time, the recorders involved, and then the cameras. If we need to drag additional cameras in, we could easily do that. They would match up and get exported concerning this sort of event. Something that's extremely nice is, depending on how many events start coming into the system, is they're going to queue up in order. Again, prioritized, sorted by cause or event, or by any sort of way that you'd like to double or triple sort these events. As we go down and start acknowledging them, we can take the event, take it to an active situation, and then we can actually start to do the investigation that way. As we move forward, we're going to actually be able to clear those off, which really makes it nice so that only the active video is shown. So only the concerned video or something that's in an actual alarm right now is available there. So again, simple ways that we get them popping up depending on how they come in. Here we have a rejected on the clearance level, and then a simple phase, we can acknowledge it, start to work on the event, and then clear the event as it comes through. Really powerful part of this situation is going to be the reporting side. So this is something that's a little bit more on the reactive side, and we're going to do is a new card report. We're going to go up here, we're going to pick our time and date, where we'd like to have this search. We're going to pick our type of category. In this case, it's an access control report. We're going to go through, and we're going to decide what we want to search. On this, it's going to be door activity. Going through, we can select one door, 2 doors, multiple doors, a wing of doors, whatever you'd like to do. On this case, we're going to select all the doors in the list, and then we're going to go through and actually pick up what we'd like to search for. In this case, we're going to pick up the alarms. In other cases, we could do a specific credential or actually follow through where somebody in the facility went. In this case, we're going to pick up the alarms, and for us, it's going to be all the door forced opens or door held opens that come in through that door. Again, through simply and easily right-clicking, we're able to actually get back to the review page. That's going to take us to those associated cameras, to the time and date that locks it and starts the playback process from those events. Again, with the full playback control, we're able to get the fast forward and rewind and easily drag in additional cameras if needed. This is a very powerful feature of the Victor server. Typically, we'd be able to see sometimes just that single camera of the event, but here we get full control and a full video client that we can actually drag additional cameras into the investigation, which locks it in that time frame. Again, allowing us to simply and easily fast forward and rewind all those clips simultaneously for a better picture of what happens. From there, we can easily see, again, where the map is, where the event occurred, and what needs to take place, animated with all the signs that we need to see. Finally, another way to look at these reports is the visualizer. This is, again, extremely powerful for somebody trying to distinguish maybe when we have a rush of people coming through, we have specific events happening during maybe a period of time, some sort of event that's happening, we need to trend over time and actually get a visual representation. So here we go. We run that same report that we just saw. Instead of getting that big, long, static list, here it is broken out on times to date and in a visual format. Hovering over the bars, we're able to drill down further and actually get more information. As we get in there further, we're going to see that most of the events start to happen at the early part of the hour. Again, easier to see what could have happened and what could have caused those sort of actions. As we go in further, drill it down, we can get a better picture. Again, seeing only specific times and isolating things to specific minutes or whatever we'd like to do there. We're going to continue to drill down into this, and eventually we're going to get down to singular events. As we see that, we can click on any of those events, and again, videos presented to us and easy for us to start to view. The map is also available, and again, driven from a visual search. This is extremely powerful for something that may fall out of the norm, and it's able to be visualized much simpler than a typical search. That concludes the quick feature set improvements that we have here. I'd like to hand it back over to Jason to take you through the rest of the application server.
All right, Jeff, thank you very much. So we've certainly spent some time talking about the difference between unified and integrated, being that unified is one database, and we've taken a look now at what the client aspect looks like and can provide from a functional level, but we need to now talk about the back end and what that means. So as we've alluded to by saying that this is really one database, we're really saying from a server perspective, it's one product, and as such, that requires us to provide a new installer that combines the two products, and that's what we're looking at here. So on the screen to the left, you'll see what the installer presents with version 230 of Secure 9000 or Victor version 4.5 or the Unified, all being one installer, the choice that you get presented on a clean machine installation. So the first choice now is going to be the question of, would you like to install an American Dynamics product, or do you want to install the Software House or Unified? And that's really how it presents. So if you're going to do an installation of Victor standalone, you would choose the American Dynamics tile and then follow the prompts from there. And if you're going to install Secure 9000 standalone, or if you're going to do the Unified installation, then you would go under the Software House tile and follow along again from there. The screen to the right shows if you choose the Software House tile, your first choice is going to be the platforms to choose from. And one of the key things that I need to point out here is a simple name change. So what previously was called the Secure 9000 server, now that it's unified, is going to be referenced as the Victor application server. So where you see the name Victor is the reference to something that is unified and brings together both American Dynamics and Software House, and in this case is the server. So even if you are installing Secure 9000 version 230 standalone with no plan to use Victor or Unified, this will still present as the Victor application server, and that is, again, representative of what the server is. So don't be caught up by that or feel like something is missing when you're going through the install process. That is just a simple rename. The rest of the prompts will follow just as you're used to with Secure 9000, and functionally there is no difference. So again, just a couple key things about the new installer and what you're going to see to hopefully avoid some confusion and pitfalls. Then as we would talk about being one server, what are some of the benefits of that? And a few of them are probably pretty obvious, but in the past it would have been a standalone Secure 9000 server and a separate standalone Victor Site Manager. Those might be physical boxes as presented here on the slide, but could also be virtual machines. But each one of those has its own instance of Windows and SQL, plus each one of those needs its backup and maintenance and upgrades and so forth. So now, by combining those into one single server, there certainly are some cost of ownership benefits that directly become apparent, because now it's a single instance of SQL, a single instance of Windows, and one box, again, whether that be physical or virtual, to be managed, upgraded, maintained as we go forward. So certainly we see that as just the tip of the iceberg benefit, but you hopefully can see how this would simplify going forward, not having to have multiple servers to manage this video and access environment. We've also talked about the hybrid approach of what Victor Unified Client can bring, combining access and video. So you get to leverage the power of the existing connected program with integrations that might go through import and export, such as visitor management, or the general purpose integration or bidirectional interface that allows you to do things like Indusoft building management, intercom integrations, alerts for notification or lockdown, for instance, in a K-12 environment or university campus. So those are all types of integrations that are available through what is just really an ASCII-based protocol. And then you have the rich SDK, which today has over 186 partners that are brought in through a level of integration to the platform. And we've added with Victor Unified, and this works both on a Victor standalone as well as Secure 9000 standalone and combined unified, a true web services based on a RESTful protocol. So this opens up the door now to solutions which may have limitations around the Windows environment and still need to tie in an integration. So this we think is going to become another very powerful tool for integration and an additional offering that just builds on the strength of this hybrid solution that is now available through Tyco Security products. Okay, next then, another benefit we'll talk about is the licensing. So again, single server, meaning one place to manage and view licensing. What you can see here is that I am now able to, through one tab in the license summary, view whether I have one product licensed, both products licensed, and if it's unified. And then a separate tab for Victor and Secure 9000 to break out and give me the detail and the limits of each of those products on this one server. So again, license management becomes simpler. There's one place to go for license updates and to view the current limits and capabilities of that particular server. Moving on to the next piece, as we have been developing and moving into this environment, one thing I think becomes pretty obvious is that we're putting more weight and impact on this server that's now providing two pieces of core functionality when it comes to security. And as such, the way we look at it is then we also need to try to make sure that the uptime on this box and being able to troubleshoot becomes much easier. And so for the server configuration application that, again, works either independently with Victor, independently with Software House and Secure 9000, or combined in the unified environment, you now have this dashboard of metrics that can be viewed through the server configuration application that can assist you with a large degree of the troubleshooting. So you can see from the screenshot here in the upper left-hand corner some of the basic information you would always want to see from a health monitoring perspective, such as CPU performance and memory, right? If you were starting to get complaints that the client is responding in some sort of slow way, or you can quickly look at this and assess whether the box itself is having performance problems, which may or may not be related directly to the applications for Victor and Secure, but at least now you can clearly see where a problem is presiding. But the information that then breaks out to the right of that really gives you the more deeper view of our individual products. So you can see things like the driver performance itself for the Crossfire engine, which is the server itself, and also the read-writes, the inputs and output read-write to the database, and how that's performing, and the number of transactions per second, which might come down to, again, if somebody was saying that there's performance concerns with the product, and you look and the CPU is good, the memory is good, the box doesn't seem to be struggling, but what we're seeing is that the read-write times are significantly dropping when it comes to the server. It might be a case where the SQL Server is sitting remote and something else is taxing that server that's impeding on the performance of the security platform. And so this gives you a quick way to discern exactly where that problem is and get it resolved before it becomes something that might result in downtime. So we certainly have the database level of visibility to performance as well as the driver. And then in the lower part of the screen, we can see all of the client connections and the drivers that are installed on the server, and also how they are individually performing. So again, a very quick dashboard way to see exactly what's happening, and if there are problems, where specifically are those problems, so we don't end up chasing our tails on maybe false things, and and we get to a much faster resolution with the idea here that we prevent any possible downtime. So this is also a very powerful tool and significant adds that have been made and launched with this unified platform. Next, we'll talk a little bit about the overall architecture of how the unified solution works. So we'll just start with the circle on the left to start with, where you have one single Victor application server, keeping in mind that that could be standalone. We'll talk about enterprise here in a second. But the key thing there is that on that particular server is both access and video. So you can see the video edge recorders tying in at the top where the video data is physically being stored, and then Victor as the client in the front end of that being able to provide the event and live and recorded video management, smart search, all those capabilities off of those recorders, and then our clients, the door control modules, readers, and so forth. So that's what it looks like on an individual level. But one of the key things here is that as we've put this together and launched it, we've been able to keep this in line with our enterprise solution for Secure 9000. And so the Victor application server can be installed at both the MAS and the SAS level, giving you access to the overall benefits of global configuration, global monitoring, and global reporting overall throughout an enterprise. So it lives to the same limits as the Secure 9000 Enterprise, meaning 20 SASs tied to one MAS today. And again, we see this as a real benefit, being able to support this off the initial launch, so that you're not stuck in a place where I can either have unified or enterprise but not both. Today you can do both. So just to talk a little bit more about that, there are two versions of Victor that are applicable to unified with Secure. It's the Victor Professional and the Victor Enterprise. And on the screen here, you will see just a representation of some of the specs behind that, but they're virtually identical outside of the point where it's enterprise. And this next screen that's going to be coming up will show that to you very clearly. So from a feature perspective, between Victor Professional and Enterprise, there really is no difference other than the Victor Enterprise allows the connection and compatibility with the MAS SAS structure of Secure 9000. So really easy. If you're doing a standalone install unified, then you would select Victor Professional. If you're going to go and do a unification in an enterprise environment, then it would be Victor Enterprise. All right, next I'll take just a little bit of time here to talk about lessons learned. So throughout the evolution of our products, and I'm going to speak to one particular example, which is the transition from Secure 800 to 9000. We have been certainly listening to lots of voice of customer, observing how that transition has performed and looking at how do we do things better as we continue to launch new, innovative, and exciting products like the Victor Unified Solution. And so one of the things I'll touch on here is that as we did this fairly revolutionary change from 800 to 9,000, there are two different databases. So you had a Progress database underneath Secure 800, and you had a SQL database that lived under the 9,000. And so those two things would not talk to each other, and that required us to come up with migration tools to be able to move as much of that data as we could. But as well, over the life of the 9,000, we had to move 180, I think it was 83 features that were in the Secure 800 and have to be slated to bring over to the 9,000 in order to say that we have full compatibility and not leaving features behind. So over the many years as we've been developing Secure 9000, that has certainly been another pain point. That is, if I migrate to 9000, I might have to do without some features for a period of time until those show up in the roadmap. As well, the 9000 was such a new product that it really did require a whole new level of training and investment to get certified and understand the differences between the products because the way they worked was so different. One being based on runtime memory and the other one being all transactions written to a database and the side effects that came out of that. So, and we did initially have a lack of tool availability to go through those transitions. That's been addressed now between the data migration utility and the data replication utilities that we have. But just the same, as you can see, it's a migration and it's complex and it comes with some trade-offs. So as we went in the direction of developing Victor and working between product management and our engineering team on how we solve some of these problems, this is how we've achieved to where we are today, that we've built this off the 9000 core, and although we're introducing new capabilities and technologies, we're able to keep this on the same database, meaning no migration. It's just put in the disk and upgrade. So that simplifies that whole level of the process. And there's no loss of functionality because these things can all be blended right together, as I talked about in the initial presentation of what the Victor client means, right? So these things can literally run simultaneously, side by side, in a multi-monitor capability, allowing me to take advantage of some of the exciting features that Jeff was talking to you about with the data visualizer and the swipe and show and the ability to hover a map and bring up and get to a video search right away with associated cameras, right? All because it's running on one single database. So all those benefits, are leveraged off the fact that we could be that same database. And again, because this was built on the 9000 technology, it brings down the overall learning curve. So I think as Jeff was going through some of those screens, it looks a lot like the monitoring application and the layouts, except a little easier because you can do those configurations on the fly and save without having to go between an admin and a monitoring client, right? So just really improvements, but a look and feel that is intuitive enough that it doesn't take a same level of investment and training to come up to speed as it did going 800 to 9000. So those are definitely some key benefits, some lessons learned that I wanted to share with everybody because they may not be so apparent, but we are listening. We're constantly looking at how we do things better in our product introductions, and that's just to invite the continuous feedback that gets provided to us, so that we can, as we move forward, keep these innovations coming. So let's talk a little bit now about the benefits and the value streams here. So when it comes to the integrator side and the advantages, we've talked about the lower cost of ownership because it's a single server, but certainly from an integrator perspective, if I've got a plan and budget for going in and doing either a new deployment or an upgrade, being able to do this at one server rather than having to do multiple shortens down the time, right? The overall cost and investment with doing that. So that's certainly a benefit. We've already talked about that this is built on the 9000 technology, so the training and the ramp up is not going to be as significant, and hopefully makes that transition also go smoother and allow them to get out into the field with the new product faster. And we're also able to provide some better services, right? With that metrics and health dashboard that I was showing you that's now available with the server configuration application, you're going to be able to look, identify, and solve problems much faster, hopefully getting in and out of the site without having to spend the same time as previously on the standalone platforms without all this great view. So that's a huge benefit. And then, again, the hybrid environment of unified and as well integrated allows us to tie much more of the security products together and giving a much more competitive view at how to solve problems, right? Knowledge is power, data is power. When you tie all of these things together in one view, there really is much more that you can do in terms of value when providing a Victor unified environment. If we talk about next the end customer side of this, again, it really comes down to the reducing overall the number of steps that you previously would have had to take between a two-server environment and two clients. So when a forced door happens, or I'm getting excessive card rejects, and somebody had mentioned to me a use case that could happen where maybe somebody's getting rejected, they get upset, and they try to damage the reader on the wall, but there's cameras in the area, right? The number of steps you might have to take to investigate that in a two-server, two-client environment, as opposed to being able to have all this stuff tied together and through the data visualizer see, okay, well, here's where I got a high spike of rejects, and being able to quickly get to the associated video and see exactly what happened, right? So again, simplifying the steps, reducing the overall work, that's a huge benefit to people who are doing the security monitoring on the platform. And then as well, because this is all one database, I'm not having to, when I bring in the Victor Unified, redefine all of the secure doors to associate what cameras go to them. As soon as I bring up that client, it knows all of the doors, and all I'm doing is saying these 3 cameras are associated to that door. And from that point forward, because that's all connected in one database, simply hovering over a map or an activity allows me to quickly get to and bring up those videos and then go through the powerful capabilities of Smart Search and so forth that Victor offers. So, again, that direct association single database solution is going to be a time saver. To the end customer, we continue to see the benefits of a total lower cost of ownership, especially when you bring that through the high availability, fault tolerance, and disaster recovery. Now I don't have to have 2 separate solutions to keep my continuity of business. I have one solution that covers both my access and video. So again, very powerful. And Jeff, I think, did a wonderful job of bringing us through a number of the benefits of the features, but just listed here some of the key extended features you get when you add this new client to the existing client capabilities of a secure Victor mixed environment. So again, benefits all the way through from integrator to end customer. So that brings us to the wrap-up and conclusion. A few of the key takeaways and messages that I think we've stomped on pretty well here this afternoon between Jeff and myself, but we'll mention again because I think it's, again, very important to know the messages walking away. It's a single server solution, right, with absolute benefit from integrator to end customer, total lower cost of ownership, and that's a huge value. It's a new client experience in addition to all of the existing clients that you already have in a secure environment that can be mixed and run through a multi-monitor mode. So you're not having to trade off and lose features of your Secure 9000 monitoring like the Assess and because you want to take advantage of Swipe and Show and Victor today, you can have both, and they can run side by side, and that's very powerful and compelling when it comes to being able to get this deployed. And the last part is that unified doesn't mean that it's restricted to a standalone. Unified works both in standalone and the enterprise environment, and as we discussed, it's a simple choice between whether I'm picking the Victor Professional on a standalone platform versus Victor Enterprise if I'm going into a Secure 9000 enterprise environment, leveraging the benefits of the central configuration, monitoring, and reporting. So all the key things, and again, hopefully here today we've addressed many questions and confusion that there's been around what Victor and unification means. And with that, at this point, I'd like to open up the Q&A part of the presentation today to hopefully address any questions we might not have covered so far. And again, you can type that either into the chat section of the webinar, or you can also do a raise hand function and we can unmute lines. So with that, we'll break into questions.
I do have a couple. Said, what would the upgrade procedure be for a customer that has Victor installed already to integrate Intelex and VideoEdge and also has Secure 800 when we later need to upgrade to Secure 9000?
Wow, well that is a complex mix of an environment, and there's several things there. So one is that I heard Secure 800. Secure 800 is something that would require a migration to 9000. So that probably would be step one in the planning, and that is not a small task, right? The best I can say that here is that is not an upgrade. That is truly a migration, and does take time and planning. And the more of the planning that goes into it up front, the smoother that process can go. So our Smart Services group through professional services and are all available to help with that. I highly recommend doing an audit report of your Secure 800 to identify any potential hardware problems, misconfigurations that can be cleaned up before you migrate. So with the message really there, garbage in, garbage out, right? So you want to clean that up and have as pristine of an environment as possible when you move to the 9000. Once that is done, if you already have Victor in play, at that point you could take your 9000 and install that onto the Victor platform and make that now your unified environment. So at a high level, there's lots of details to get into there, but that at a high level is the steps you would need to take to get into a fully unified environment from where you are with a separate 800 and Victor that's already in play.
Okay. Next question. Does Victor Enterprise require a license to buy? And if so, does it get the license on the feature side or the Victor side?
Okay, great question. So there is a license option for unification, both in Victor and on Secure. But Enterprise is free. So there's no extra charge on either side of this to be able to run unification in an enterprise environment. So it's just the unification option.
I am going to thank you very much for attending today, and to let you know that if you have any questions or need more information, please don't hesitate to contact either Jason or Jeff. You can also contact Jamie D'Souza and George Martinez, and go to our website for Software House and American Dynamics, and if you have any questions too about American Dynamics, there's also avpm.info. I will be sending out the recorded webinar to anyone that requests it. And I would like to thank you on behalf of Jason and Jeff for attending again today. Thank you all very much.